Long Arrow, who was an orphan and abandoned boy, was adopted by the elder Good Running. Once he had reached manhood, Long Arrow asked Good Running how he could repay him. Good Running told of the story of a distant lake with spirit people who had animals that were swift as elk, but also burden carriers like a dog. Long Arrow found the lake and met a young spirit who took him to the bottom where the spirit grandfather lived. The young spirit told Long Arrow to watch for a glimpse of the old man's feet, which he kept hidden under his long black robe. If Long Arrow saw them, the old man would grant his requests. After 4 days, the old man's robe caught on a post, and Long Arrow saw that he had hoofs just like the elk dogs. The old man was the master of the elk dogs. Long Arrow asked for 3 things: the black robe that prevented the horses from running away, a rainbow-colored quilled belt that carried elk dog dance songs and prayers, and a herd of the elk dog. The old man granted the requests and also gave Long Arrow a magic rope to catch the elk dog. And so the Blackfoot have been horse people ever since.
When our people first encountered horses, they thought they were big dogs. And so they treated them like big dogs, and they give them commands, and they take care of them, and they're part of their family. When we got the horse, it allowed us to have greater mobility and to hunt buffalo and move around and do things different. And there was no fences, there was no kraals, they just called them in. They just treated them like their pets. We had one gentleman, one of our elders, and he was one of the first guys that I ever seen that talked to his horses. He had about 20 horses. And he'd open the gate in the morning and let them go out in the hills and eat. And then in the afternoon, he'd walk out there and he'd talk to them, and he'd bring them all back in by himself on foot. He'd tell them to come back in, and he'd just follow them back in the gate, close the gate. Pretty amazing. And when I was younger, we either walked or we rode horse. We didn't have bikes, we didn't have cars. And so they had a really direct communication with them. So it was like a sincere, trusting relationship. Where now we don't have that relationship anymore, because now we're not living in sync with them every day like we did before. So now when we go out in the field, they run away.
So horses have always been part of the family, whether it's hunting, fishing, camping, or out working cattle. They've always been there, and it's always been a part of my life, so I've never had to miss out on them. Working with a horse, especially on a ranch, is something that's a day-to-day thing. We see them in the movies, and we see them in the old westerns, and those are the cowboys and the Indians, and that's kind of part of history, and it's something that doesn't happen anymore. But for us, it's an everyday thing to push cattle across the prairie and to ride and to use them as part of our life, not just as something that we think of as the past. So the wild horses are an issue in the public lands and the open range of the western United States, and basically the issue is they weren't managed for many years, and as a result they become overpopulated in so much that they're damaging the habitat for themselves, for all these different other species of animals. And at this point in time, the sanctuary is kind of a home for those that have been taken off from the wild and they have nowhere else to go.
We move horses from pasture to pasture here on the sanctuary, mainly because we want to take care of the environment as much as we can. And horses have a tendency to overgraze, so we move them from one pasture to the next so that we don't overgraze a piece of land to where there's no regrowth back.
I take for granted a lot of times what horses have to offer, and the simple things of how beautiful they are, how powerful and strong they are. And so when people come in that don't have a lot of experience with horses, it humbles me and allows me to step back and think about how much power there is in that friendship that I have with a horse.
So Sun Bearer, he did one of the greatest things, and he took elements from both Father Sun and Mother Earth to create the horse. He took the growings of plants like white corn to make the ears so that they could hear from far away. He took both the stars and the dark universe to make the eyes. Have you guys ever seen the eye of a horse? Did you know horses can see at night? And then he took shell to make the teeth. If you look at a horse's teeth, they're huge and they're white because he made them out of shell. And he made their legs out of lightning. And that's why horses are fast. And when they run, they sound like thunder. And last but not least, he put an arrowhead underneath them for protection. The Navajos believe that horses are protectors. They protect their masters, their owners, as if they were their own.
And we have the children with their families, their parents and grandparents come together. The horse brings all of that. And it heals us. It heals us. It makes us feel better. Anybody that rides, they just love to gallop. It's a spiritual connection that they make with the horses. And we already have that connection. We just got to rekindle it. It's in all of our blood.